The airlock hissed behind me like it was annoyed I'd walked through it, which, honestly, summed up my entire day. I'd only planned to stop at this dusty little outpost to pick up a replacement filter for my water recycler. Instead, the universe decided I needed an adventure. Or maybe a headache. Probably both. The station bar looked like it had been decorated by someone who had only ever heard of bars through rumors. Metal walls, flickering hollow signs, and a smell that reminded me of recycled socks soaked in engine oil. I ordered something green and fizzy, hoping it was safe for human consumption. The bartender shrugged, which I took as a yes. That's when she walked in. Or glided, more like. Everyone turned their heads, and I mean everyone. Even the drunk lizard guy passed out on the counter raised an eyelid. She looked human at first glance, 2 eyes, 1 nose, limbs in all the right places, but her ears were long, sweeping back elegantly like they were sculpted for the sole purpose of making me feel underdressed. Her hair shimmered as if the station's dim lights were trying to worship her, and she had that aura of someone who had never once tripped over a loose cable in her life. I, naturally, choked on my drink. She noticed. Of course she noticed. And because the universe hates me, she decided to sit at my table. You, she said, her voice like velvet dipped in static. You will do. I said, wiping fizzy green stuff off my chin. That's a strong opening line. Normally people start with, hi, or, are you using this chair? Her eyes glowed faintly, which was either a sign of otherworldly power or indigestion. I require a human. You are one. Sharp observation. 10 points to Space Hogwarts. I tried smiling. Look, I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just here for a filter. Water recycler. Very boring stuff. Her lips curled, not quite a smile, not quite a snarl. Your blood sings. You are compatible. Compatible with what? With me. I considered pretending to faint, but figured that would only give her an excuse to carry me off. So instead I went with humor, my trusty shield. Wow. I haven't even bought you dinner yet. At least let me check if my schedule's free for cosmic binding rituals. She leaned closer, and I caught a flash of fangs. Actual fangs. You jest, she murmured, but your fate is sealed. And then she bit me. Not a, ha-ha, love nip, kind of bite. More like a, congratulations, you've just unlocked a terrifying new chapter in your life, bite. My vision swam, my ears rang, and I felt a pulse inside me that wasn't mine. The bar around us blurred, voices turning into echoes. When my senses returned, she was watching me with unnerving calm. It is done. What's done? Did you just? Look, if this is some kind of sci-fi prank show, I want royalties. You are bound. My people's way is sacred. You carry my child. I spat half a mouthful of green fizz onto the table. I what? Impregnation is instant once the bond is forged. You are now my consort. I laughed, because if I didn't, I'd probably start screaming. Lady, I don't even know your name. She tilted her head. Names are irrelevant when destinies entwine. Not to me they're not. If I'm going to be your consort or whatever, at least give me something to yell when I'm filing a complaint. She blinked slowly, like she couldn't decide whether to be amused or offended. I am Velrith of the Crimson Line. You will not complain. Oh, trust me, Velrith, I complain about everything. It's kind of my superpower. Just ask the last guy who tried to sell me a fake plasma coil. I'm still sending him strongly worded messages. Her ears twitched, a subtle movement, but enough to make me wonder if she was hiding a laugh. The bartender, apparently deciding none of this was his business, slid me another drink and backed away. The other patrons were staring, but in that, I'm pretending not to stare but definitely gossiping about you, way. I rubbed my neck where she'd bitten me. It wasn't bleeding, but it tingled, like I'd stuck it too close to a faulty capacitor. "So, you're telling me I'm pregnant now?" "Just like that?" "Yes." I groaned. "Fantastic. I always knew my luck would kill me. I just thought it'd be falling into a reactor, not this." Velrith leaned back, regal and unbothered. "You will accompany me. We are to be wed." "Hold on. Wed? As in married? You don't just bite a guy and call it a wedding. There are steps. Invitations. Cake. At least one embarrassing dance." She regarded me with solemn gravity. "You jest again. It matters not. The bond is unbreakable." I buried my face in my hands. I caught up, because staying behind meant I might get eaten by the corridors. "So, just to clarify, we're married now? No papers, no rings, no arguments over who controls the remote. The bond is stronger than paper." "Sure, but paper doesn't try to bite me in the neck." Her pace didn't falter. "You jest constantly. It is inconvenient. It's a coping mechanism. Humans make jokes when they're terrified. Keeps us from screaming. Or crying. Or both." I gestured wildly at the glowing veins on the ceiling. "Case in point, I am trapped in a giant space lum with a vampire who thinks I'm her husband. This is scream-worthy, Velrith." She finally turned, and the faint glow in her eyes caught me in place. "You are my husband. The bond is eternal." I raised a finger. "Until one of us dies." She tilted her head. "Even then." "Well, that's reassuring," I muttered. We entered a vast chamber where the walls pulsed brighter, and in the center was a platform shaped suspiciously like a giant tongue. I decided not to ask questions. Better not to know. "This will be your resting place," she said. "Mine? As in, mine alone?" "Ours. Right. Of course." I scratched the back of my neck. "Velrith, look, I'm not saying I'm ungrateful for your hospitality, very hospitable tongue room you've got here, but humans usually talk these things out. You know, before committing to eternal blood-bonded matrimony." She stepped closer, ears twitching faintly. "You speak of hesitation. Yet your blood chose. My blood doesn't get a vote. I get a vote. And my vote is, slow down. Maybe a coffee, some light conversation, not instant pregnancy and an unbreakable marriage pact." She considered me for a long, unsettling moment, and for the first time, I thought I saw doubt flicker across her face. Just for a second, gone as quickly as it appeared. "You will adapt," she said finally, softer. "You must." Before I could respond, the ship shuddered, lights flickering along the walls. A low groan echoed, like the vessel itself was annoyed. Velritha's expression sharpened. "It hungers." "Excuse me, what?" "The ship must feed." "Oh, great. Of course it does. Why wouldn't it? So what's on the menu?" "Please don't say humans." She walked to a console that looked like a cluster of living coral and pressed her hand to it. "We approach a nebula. The energies will suffice." I exhaled. Good. Because I skipped breakfast and I'm not about to become someone else's. The walls lit up, and the floor trembled as the ship angled itself toward a swirling cloud of light outside the viewport. It looked beautiful, like someone had spilled paint across the universe. Then the ship opened its maw, because apparently ships have those now, and began sucking in energy streams like a star-sized milkshake. "Is this normal?" I asked. "Yes. And if it wasn't, you'd tell me, right?" She didn't answer. Which was not comforting. When the feeding was done, the ship let out a sound disturbingly close to a satisfied burp. I decided not to comment. Instead, I slumped onto the tongue platform and rubbed my face. "Velrith, listen. I'm just some guy. I fix recyclers, I complain about ration packs, and I once lost a staring contest with a cleaning drone. I'm not cut out for whatever this is. She stood over me, ears shifting slightly, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. You underestimate the bond. It will guide you. And I will not release you. I peeked at her through my fingers. That sounded romantic for about 2 seconds, then terrifying again. You really gotta work on your delivery. For a long moment, she simply looked at me. Then, unexpectedly, her lips twitched. A half smile. Barely there, but real. Perhaps, she said, you will teach me. And that was the most frightening part. Because it meant she was listening, Velrith announced that we were heading to her homeworld with the same tone most people use when telling you the train will be 5 minutes late. I, on the other hand, reacted the way any sane human would upon learning they're about to meet the in-laws of a vampire alien queen. I panicked so hard I nearly hyperventilated into the ship's ventilation system. You will present yourself with dignity, she said, adjusting something on the living console. I'll try, but let's be honest here, me and dignity haven't been on speaking terms since I slipped on a banana peel in front of an ambassador last year. If your family expects anything other than disappointment, they're in for a rough evening. Her ears flicked. My family expects reverence. Oh, reverence I can do. I'll bow, I'll kneel, heck, I'll even do jazz hands if it gets me through dinner without being drained of blood. She gave me one of those long, unreadable stares that made me wonder if she was silently plotting my execution. Or maybe planning the seating chart. Hard to tell. The ship dropped into orbit around her world, and my stomach dropped with it. The planet looked like something a Gothic architect designed after a very long night of drinking, towers piercing the clouds, spires curling like claws, all under a sun that glowed black-red as if it was perpetually sunset. As we descended, I tried to calm myself. Okay, rules. No jokes about garlic. No jokes about steaks. No jokes about coffin shopping. Got it. Velrith glanced at me. What is a garlic? Nothing. Forget I said anything. A vegetable. Harmless. Unless you're Italian, then it's sacred. We landed in a courtyard where people, no, not people, aliens who all shared her elegant features and very sharp fangs, stood in ceremonial rows. They stared at me as though I were either the Messiah or a menu item. I waved. Hi. I'm, the +1. Whispers spread like wildfire. Velrith ignored them and strode forward, expecting me to follow. I shuffled after her, whispering under my breath. Okay, deep breaths. Just pretend you're at a work party where you don't know anyone and you're only here for the free snacks. Inside the palace, which looked like it had been carved out of pure intimidation, we were ushered into a vast hall. Her family sat at a long obsidian table, looking like judges at a talent show where the prize was your soul. Velrith introduced me with full ceremonial pomp. This is the one chosen by the bond. The human. I gave a little wave. Hey. Just call me Dan. Everyone does. A silence fell so heavy I swear I heard someone's fangs clink. Finally, an older figure, taller ears, sharper eyes, leaned forward. He makes light of sacred tradition. No, 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 I said quickly. I respect your traditions. I just also respect not passing out from nerves, so the jokes are a coping strategy. Please don't execute me. The elder narrowed their eyes. He is strange. Velritha's lips twitched. Yes. The dinner that followed was interesting. Plates of glowing meat, cups of crimson liquid, and something that looked suspiciously like it was still moving. I poked at my plate and whispered to Velrith, "This isn't human, right? Please tell me it's not human." "It is not." "Oh good." I stabbed a piece with my fork. It wriggled. "That's only slightly worse." Her relatives bombarded me with questions. Where did I come from? How had I survived the binding? Did humans always talk so much? I tried to answer honestly, which mostly meant admitting I was out of my depth and occasionally deflecting with sarcasm. At one point, someone asked if humans had clans. I panicked and said yes, immediately regretting it when they demanded to know my clan's name. I blurted out, the clan of Costco, which apparently sounded mystical enough that they all nodded in approval. Despite my fumbling, something strange began to happen. The more I made a fool of myself, the more Velritha's relatives seemed intrigued. One even laughed when I compared their planetary defense fleet to an overenthusiastic neighborhood watch. Velrith, meanwhile, tried very hard to keep a straight face, but I caught her ears twitching every time I said something especially stupid. Later, when the formalities ended and we were alone in the hall, I slumped against a pillar. Well, that was fun. I'm pretty sure I just embarrassed you in front of your entire bloodline. She looked at me, expression softer than I'd ever seen it. You survived. Barely. I think I invented a new religion for them. Her gaze lingered. You disarmed them. That is, not something I expected. I raised an eyebrow. So, what you're saying is, sarcasm might save my life. Perhaps. I grinned. Good. Because it's the only skill I've mastered. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between us, and then, impossibly, Velrith laughed. Not a polite chuckle, not a cruel smirk, but an actual laugh. It was short, sharp, almost alien in its rhythm, but it was real. And somehow, that was more terrifying than all the fangs in the room. I knew things were getting serious when I started drawing escape plans on the back of a napkin during breakfast. Velritha's relatives had stopped glaring at me like I was a bug on the wall and had started treating me like some kind of prophecy fulfillment, which honestly was worse. Being hated, I could handle. Being revered? That was pressure I wasn't built for. Velrith sat across from me, sipping something dark and ominous from a glass shaped like a talon. She didn't even glance at my napkin doodles. Probably because the ship had already told her everything. The walls whispered sometimes, like gossiping hallways, and I was 90% sure it tattled on me. You are restless, she said without looking up. Restless? I'd call it survival instinct. Where I come from, if you accidentally marry a vampire queen and get her pregnant, the polite thing to do is run screaming into the nearest escape pod. Her ears twitched. There is no escape. See, that's the exact kind of sentence that makes humans want to escape more. It's like telling a cat not to knock something off the counter. Guess what happens next? I pocketed the napkin anyway. Just because the ship was alive and omniscient didn't mean my doodles were useless. Worst case, I could sell them as abstract art later. That night, or whatever counted as night under a black sun, I found myself in the hangar. The palace had a fleet of sleek, fawn-shaped ships that looked like they were designed by someone who thought intimidation was a personality trait. I picked the least horrifying one and climbed aboard. The controls blinked to life, lines of alien script flowing across the console. I tapped a few buttons at random, because that's how all great pilots start. To my surprise, the ship responded. The engines purred. The hangar doors began to creak open. And then Velrith appeared, faster than should have been physically possible. 1 second I was alone, the next she was in the cockpit, ears sharp, eyes blazing. You dare. I raised my hands. Okay, before you get mad, just hear me out. This isn't betrayal, this is, an extended vacation. Very extended. Potentially permanent. Her gaze was like twin laser beams. You seek to abandon me. I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds bad. But yes. Abandon, escape, tomato, tomato. Her fangs flashed as she leaned closer. Do you not understand? The bond cannot be severed. Distance is meaningless. Well, good. Then we can bond long distance. Send each other awkward texts. Maybe video call once a week. She didn't laugh. I didn't expect her to. But I kept talking, because silence meant I'd start screaming. Look, Velrith, I didn't sign up for this. I'm just some guy who fixes recyclers. I wasn't built for. The ship jolted violently. Outside, alarms blared across the hangar. Through the viewport, I saw a dark shape streaking across the crimson sky. Sleeker ships, marked with symbols I didn't recognize. They fired beams of searing light at the palace, tearing into towers. Velritha's hand shot to the controls, overriding everything I'd pressed. Rival clan, she hissed. I blinked. You mean your family has enemies? Shocking. Never would have guessed. She ignored me, guiding the ship out of the hangar with terrifying precision. The enemy vessels swarmed, darting like sharks. Velritha's ship moved like it was alive, weaving between blasts. I clung to my seatbelt and made very undignified noises. Return fire, she commanded. I glanced at the console. Symbols everywhere, none of which looked like fire. I smacked a few randomly, and one button unleashed a spray of glowing projectiles that looked suspiciously like blood cells. The enemy ship scattered. I did it. I shouted. I'm a natural. You nearly destroyed us, Velrith replied, calmly redirecting the weapons to actually hit the target. Explosions lit the sky. The rival clan's ships fell back, but not before one fired a beam straight at us. Velrith didn't flinch. She threw the ship into a dive, taking the blast across the side. Sparks flew. Systems screamed. I screamed louder. We're hit. What's the protocol? Do we eject? Do we pray? Do we write our wills? We fight, she said. Her voice had steel in it, but when I glanced at her, I saw something else flicker across her face. Worry. Not for herself, for me. She would never admit it, but the bond had rattled her too. The enemy regrouped, circling. Velrith set her jaw, preparing for a last stand. I, meanwhile, spotted something blinking on the console. A translation icon, probably mocking me for not noticing it sooner. I slammed it. Suddenly, the console lit up in words I could read: weapons. Shields. Tractor beam. Tractor beam. I yelled. That's my style. Non-lethal, slightly ridiculous. I hit it, and one of the rival ships was yanked into another like toys in a cosmic claw machine. They exploded spectacularly. Velritha's head snapped toward me. For once, she looked surprised. Maybe even impressed. We tore through the remaining ships, her piloting and my chaotic button mashing somehow working in tandem. When the last enemy fled, silence fell over the cockpit, broken only by my wheezing breaths. I slumped back, drenched in sweat. Okay. So maybe I'm not completely useless. She studied me, ears shifting, eyes softer than usual. You are unexpected. I grinned weakly. Story of my life. She turned back to the controls, setting a course away from the burning sky. But she didn't say anything about my escape attempt. Didn't lecture, didn't threaten. Just flew in silence. And that silence told me everything. She wasn't letting me go, not because of the bond, not because of duty, but because, against all odds, she actually cared. Which, honestly, was far scarier than the rival clan's fleet. The palace was half in ruins by the time we returned. Towers that once loomed like teeth were broken, smoke curling into the crimson sky. The rival clan had left their mark, but Velrith walked through the wreckage with her head high, as if daring the universe to challenge her again. I followed behind, trying not to trip over rubble while quietly wondering if Galactic health insurance covered, bitten by vampire queen, forced into eternal matrimony, attacked by in-laws enemies. Her family gathered in the shattered hull. They looked at me differently now. Not like an intruder, not like a curiosity, something more complicated. Respect, maybe. Or the kind of suspicion you give someone who just blew up 3 ships by pressing random buttons. The elder spoke. The human survived. Barely, I muttered. But yes, survived. With style, I'd argue. They didn't laugh. Velritha's ears twitched, her version of a smile, I'd learned. He fought beside me, she said. That earned murmurs. I realized then that for her people, bonds weren't just about blood or prophecy. They were about proving worth. And somehow, through panic, sarcasm, and questionable button mashing, I had done that. Later, alone in the ship that had become more of a home than I cared to admit, I confronted her. Velrith, I need to know. Did you ever plan this? Did you bite me because you wanted to bind me, or was it just instinct? She stood silent for a long time, her gaze fixed on the stars outside the viewport. Finally, she said, the bond was not planned. I thought only to taste. But your blood, it answered. It bound us both. I rubbed the back of my neck. So it was an accident. Her eyes met mine, glowing faintly. A fate. I laughed, because if I didn't, I'd probably collapse. My fate involves interspecies marriage, surprise fatherhood, and dodging starships. Figures. She tilted her head. Do you regret it? I opened my mouth to say yes. To complain, to scream, to insist I wanted my old life back. But the words stuck. Because the truth was, my old life had been nothing. Fixing recyclers, eating ration packs, sleeping in a tin can apartment. Safe, sure, but empty. No, I admitted. I regret the lack of warning, maybe. But, no. I don't regret this. Her expression softened, the smallest curve of her lips appearing. Then you are changed. Don't sound so surprised. Humans are adaptable. Throw us in deep space, we'll make jokes until we figure it out. Jokes, she repeated, as if tasting the word. Yeah. Like this, 2 humans walk into a bar, and one accidentally marries a vampire queen. The other says, check, please. Velrith frowned, then laughed, really laughed, the sound alien and musical, echoing through the ship. It startled me more than the battles. When her people gathered again to demand the bond's future, Velrith stood beside me, her hand brushing mine in a gesture that was both claim and comfort. He is mine, she told them. And I am his. The clans may rage, but the bond is stronger. For once, I didn't argue. I stepped forward, cleared my throat, and said, yeah, what she said. Also, I'd appreciate a maternity leave policy, because apparently I'm carrying the kid. The hall erupted in scandalized gasps. Velritha's ears twitched violently, her equivalent of snorting. I grinned. The weeks that followed blurred into a strange rhythm. Lessons in her culture. Trips across the stars. More than one assassination attempt, which I now knew to treat as part of the in-law experience. And somewhere between the chaos, we learned to laugh together. To argue without ending the world. To find something real in the mess fate had thrown at us. One evening, as the ship hummed through the void, I looked at her and realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of her, not of the bond, not even of the future. You know, I said, back home, marriage is supposed to be about compromise. Give and take. Maybe we can try that. She considered me, then nodded. Compromise. You teach me your ways. I teach you mine. Together, we survive. Survive? I smirked. We'll do more than survive. We'll annoy entire galaxies. And when she laughed again, I knew I'd won something far more important than freedom. I hadn't lost my life. I'd started it.